Hey everyone, Angelo here. Welcome to another design tutorial. Today, I want to take you through the steps on how to create an interactive infographic map in Adobe InDesign. In this lesson, I'll also go over how to set up button structures that trigger animation. So let's get started.
Okay, so as you can see on my screen, I have the map placed on the page already. We're not going to add the interactivity just yet. I want to walk you through the layout process, and then we'll add the interactivity to the map with the animation, the buttons, and the object states. First thing I want to do is bring in an image on the left-hand side page, so I'll do just that. I'm just going to drag it right on the page. Now I have some guides set up already that will help me as I'm laying things out here. So I have the main image, and then behind that main image, I'm just going to grab the rectangle frame tool, and I'm going to add a rectangle, send it to the back. To send to the back, it's Shift Command, and then left or right square bracket. That's the shortcut. But of course, you can go up to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, Send to Back. Now I do want to give that a color, which I've already set up here. Let's see, Map Colors, it's right there. So I want to keep the same color theme as well. And with this, I'm going to just zoom in a bit here because I do want to add a caption, which I've set up. So before I do that, I'm just going to create another rectangle and place this right above the image. And let's go ahead and give it that same color that I just gave that other rectangle. Same fill, but with this one, I'm just going to change the opacity to about 75 for now. See how that looks. I'm going to go to the Type tool, create a text frame. Now I do have a caption here that I'm going to bring in. I'm just going to paste it in there. It's going to default to this font, but that's okay. I do have some paragraph styles that I've set up previously. So you can see caption text. I'm going to click that. Now the reason you don't see it is because it is white, so I'm just going to bring it above that rectangle frame. Let's go ahead, make that frame fit, bring it down. Let's zoom in a bit. And something like that is good. So that's a good way of adding a caption to an image. So typically sometimes you'll see the captions underneath the image, but this is just another way of adding, a reverse frame with opacity set, and then you can add your caption right on top. I'm gonna put my guides back on. And this is where I'm going to start bringing in the headline, the deck headline, and then we'll carry the article over from this page to the second page. So this is a story or an article about rising costs of home ownership in Canada. So I'm just going to do Command C. Let's paste that like so. And what I'm going to do here is just drag that right over to the other side of the margin here. And again, I do have a story headline text. By the way, the fonts that I'm using for this layout, I'm using a combination of ITC Avant-Garde, Gothic Pro, and this one is called Dunkel Sans V0.7, which is a really cool font. So I thought the two together work well. So that's a good way of pairing fonts. Okay, so let's go ahead and now bring in the subhead or the deck head. Okay. And for this, because we are promoting an interactive look, I'm just going to paste that in. And let's give this, I do have deck headline. So it's an interactive look, and this should be uppercase, I believe. What did I have up here? So basically we're going to be emulating or repeating the same layout I have up top. Yeah, so that should be uppercase. Here's a little trick for a quick way of making things uppercase. Shift Command on a Mac, and K. That's a great way, a quick way. Of course, you can use your icons in your control panel up top or your properties panel. But I'm all about shortcuts. Oops. I'm all about shortcuts, so the best way for me is Shift Command K. That's one of my favorites. Great, so let's go ahead now and bring in the article, okay? And you can see me putting in these guides previously helps me as I'm working through this. By the way, I'd love to know how you guys bring in type. Are you a copy and paster like me, or do you use the file place method that many people use? Traditional way, I guess. Just let me know in the comments what's your favorite way of bringing in text. So I've created a paragraph style, and there it is there. I'm going to change this text frame to 3 columns. I'm going to click that once, and if you ever want to change the columns of a text frame, you can do that right up in the control panel as well. So you can see right there, I'm going to make it 3 columns. Actually, I'm going to make it 2 because I did leave one of the columns open for some negative space. And let's see where that story ends. Everywhere. Okay, let's bring this. Oh, you know what I'm going to do is I'm also going to copy this over. So that's just the byline and the photography credit. So I Shift Option Command V is the shortcut for paste and place. If you're grabbing something off one page, bringing it onto another, just copy it and then Shift Option Command or Shift Control, Shift Alt Control on Windows, and then the letter V. Perfect. So I have that in. Let's bring that. So, okay, so everywhere, that's where we're gonna. Good. Okay, I also have another paragraph style here. So actually, before I do that, I'm gonna highlight it all. So that's body text. And then I do have a paragraph style for a drop cap somewhere. Let's see, there it is, body text drop cap, perfect. So I'm just gonna put my cursor, you know what? I forgot to do paragraph returns there. So if I put my cursor right in front of the paragraph, the first paragraph, I'm just gonna change it to a drop cap, okay? And if you're wondering how to do a drop cap, just put your cursor in front of the start of a paragraph where you want the first letter to be as a drop cap. And then down below in your properties panel here, under the paragraph settings, you see this right here, drop cap. I usually set it to about 2. So 2 is comfortable. And then obviously the character will always be 1. You don't want a double drop cap, or maybe you do, but that's where you would set the characters. And then basically this is the amount of lines it'll take up, right? So 3 lines, 4 lines, and so on. So that's good. Perfect. So I have my story in place here, and now I'm going to carry it over. And I left some space on the right hand column, the 3rd column on the 2nd page, where I'm going to carry this over. So to do a carryover is, you probably know when you have run on text, this little red icon with the plus sign, if you click it once, that will load your cursor with what's left of the story. Now I can go to this page here and just click and it'll plop it right in, or I can drag and have a little bit more control. Okay. So this is good. It's 3 reasons to invest. I separated the story that way, and that's okay if it doesn't go all the way to the bottom, right? If you don't have enough copy, just find something else that might fit that space. Again, it doesn't have to run top to bottom. What did I do up top here? Yeah, see, I lined it up. I gave it a little bit of space from that margin, so I'll do that. Something, maybe line it up with national price map. And then I just did a little did you know box, so I'm just gonna grab that. Remember, Shift Option Command V. So did you know? It's just another good way of filling out that space. But again, it doesn't have to be too close to the remaining part of the story. And then of course you can go in and add subheads to these. So basically it's the same point size, but I've bolded them. Perfect. And subheader, good. And then I have some other numbers here, which of course you can go ahead and add interactivity to as well. Maybe animate them in some way. We're not going to be doing that for this tutorial. We're going to focus more on the map. Shift, Option, Command, V. That'll fill out that bottom space a little bit more. There, so that's a quick way of how to design and lay out a digital magazine layout. Now we're going to focus on adding interactivity, animation, and object states to the map. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start adding buttons to the provinces in this map. But before we get started, I want to make note that I've placed every province on its separate layer. That's going to make it easier when you're placing buttons and trying to add other interactivity to the province buttons. So you can see once I turn these layers on, there was British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and so on. And basically all I've done here is I've grabbed the map. By the way, it's very important that, and you can find the link to this vector map in my blog, and I'll also add it in the description down below. You're going to want to open this in Illustrator, copy it, and paste it right into InDesign. If you bring it in as an image from File Place and you bring in the Illustrator file, what's going to happen is you won't be able to click on the provinces individually. But if you copy it from Illustrator and paste it in, then you have full control. So I can grab my direct selection tool and actually click on the provinces. So the direct selection tool is the white arrow, and I can click on each province and I can group it with the text. So the text frames as well as the sections, the portions of the provinces, the Canadian map here. Okay, and you can see I've done that for every province. I've just put it on its own layer as well as the text. Okay, so let's go ahead, and for this part you're going to need to access your layers panel, as you can see here, buttons and forms, object states. You'll need that later on, as well as animation. For right now though, you'll need layers and buttons and forms. So if you need buttons and forms, go to Window, Interactive, and Buttons and Forms. Perfect. So let's start on British Columbia. I'm just going to go back to my selection tool, click on British Columbia, go to Buttons and Forms, and what I want to do here is convert it into a button. Okay, so right now it's an object, it's a grouped object. I'm going to click on that, rename the button. So this will be, now because I've done so at the top, again, I always rename it to something else so there's no confusion. British Columbia 2. Okay, and I'll name all of these 2. Don't worry about the event or the action right now. Actually, the event will be on release or tap, so you can leave it at that. The action, let's not worry about right now, but we do want to click on rollover. Okay, so when we roll over these provinces with our mouse, we want to have a subtle rollover effect or an appearance as I'm showing you. So click on rollover and then double click to drive into that selection. Go to your swatches panel, and right now it's at 100% tint, so let's just make it 85. Okay, and you can see if I go back and forth here now, we have a subtle rollover effect. That's exactly what I want. Okay, perfect. Let's move on to the second one. So Alberta, button, Alberta 2. Obviously you can just say Alberta. I'm only doing that because I've already renamed the button Alberta. So you can take that route. Don't worry about the action. Click on rollover, double click on the province to drive into that selection. And then let's make that 85 as well. Okay, and then you can see we have that rollover appearance. All right, let's keep going here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Saskatchewan, button, Saskatchewan 2, click rollover, double click, go to your swatches and make it 85, and try to remain consistent with the tint that you're setting. This way they'll all have the same appearance when you're rolling over. Okay, click back on that, go back to there, perfect. Let's go to Manitoba now, zoom in a little bit so you can see. Okay, button, Manitoba 2, click on rollover, double click, swatches, 85, okay, and then click on normal again. So you can see you have those two states there. I'm just gonna tear off the swatches panel so I don't have to keep going to it. Maybe combine it here for now. That's why I like to combine these panels together, so you're not going to this panel and then back and forth. It could be quite the headache. So, all right, we're in Ontario now. I'm gonna click that. Buttons and forms. It's a button, and this is called Ontario 2. Click on rollover. There's my swatches now. Oops. Rollover, double click to drive into it, go to swatches, and then that'll be 85. And now you can see I have that rollover appearance now. I'm gonna finish off the rest of the rollover appearances, then we'll start with the object states and animation. Perfect, I've gone ahead and added all the rollover appearances to the provinces, so let's go ahead and test it out. I'm just gonna click on my preview spread EPub. It's gonna bring up the window to preview the work so far. And let's go ahead and hover over the work. You can see I'm just hovering over, and you can see that those hover states work. Of course, I'm gonna click these and they do nothing as of yet because we haven't added an action. So let's go ahead and set up the object states with the text frames, add animation, and then add them as an action to the map. All right, so let's bring in the text frames that will animate when we click the buttons, the provinces on the map. On my pasteboard here, you can see I have several, 13 text frames that are stacked on each other. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drag them right on the page where I want them. So I want them to appear when I click these provinces, these text frames will appear. So for now, you can see that they're all stacked on each other. And again, in your layers panel, I've reordered them on how I want them to appear when I click through them. So you can see British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and so on, okay? That's important as you're working and setting up the buttons, that they're structured in a way that makes sense. So now that I have them stacked on each other, I can go to object states. Again, object states can be found in window, interactive, and object states right there, okay? And with them all selected, so just with your selection tool, drag and collect all of them. And then down below, you can convert the selection into a multi-state object. So there's all 13 states, and if I click through, you can see that they're appearing one by one, okay? So I want to rename the object name, so the multi-state object. Let's call this Provincial Housing Stats, okay? And you noticed in my map, I colored them in a way. So the darker areas, so Ontario and British Columbia, have the most expensive real estate costs or home ownership costs, whereas the other ones are a lighter gray, okay? And I made note of that here with these two little, these little circles, and then above national average and below national average, and then I have some other stats up top. But we're gonna primarily focus on these object states. So now that I've renamed the multi-state object, what I can do now is go into buttons and forms, okay? And let's go back to British Columbia. Oh, that one didn't rename. So British Columbia, I'll just rename that again. Okay, let's click on British Columbia, and the event will be on release or tab. The action will go to state. And what state do we want to go to? State 1, which is British Columbia. Okay, I'm going to click on Alberta. I don't know why these didn't rename. Okay, let's just rename them again, I guess. Alberta 2. And the action, go to state. We want this to go to state 2. So the object, there's only one here, provincial housing stats. That's why it's important to rename that. Otherwise it would just say multi-state object number, whatever. Okay, so provincial housing stats, state 2. Let's click on Saskatchewan. Okay, action, go to state, provincial housing stats, state 1. We'll change that to state 3. Click on Manitoba. Manitoba 2, I guess I have to rename the buttons again, and that's okay. Sometimes that happens. All right, the action, go to state. This is state 4, okay? And by the way, you may have this problem too. For whatever reason, it might be an InDesign bug that I'll have to look into. Typically, I can go in, let me try it again. I can go into these object states and I could rename them. But see what's happening here? I can't, it's just flashing and it won't let me rename them. That's another way, instead of reordering them in the layers panel, just rename them here. Okay, but for whatever reason I can't. That's why I do the layers panel to reorder them that way. Okay, so that's something I'm gonna look into and see what the problem is. If you're having that issue too, please let me know. I know it might be an upgrade to the Big Sur with the Mac upgrade OS. Okay, so Manitoba 2, that's set up. Let's click on Ontario. Ontario 2, and the action is go to state, and this is state 5. Okay, now, let's do Quebec. So Quebec is next. Yeah, Quebec 2 stuck, so that's good. Go to state, and this is state 6. We just have one more to go here, PEI, with an action of go to state, and the state is 13. So let's go ahead now and test these out and see if they work through as we click on the provinces. So again, just click your EPub preview. I'm gonna hover over the hover states work. I'm gonna click on BC, or it's already there, Alberta, Saskatchewan. You can see that the text frame here is changing. Ontario, okay, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and so on. Now what I want to do is just to add a little bit more interactivity to this is let's animate these text frames so they come in with a 2D zoom. Okay, so for the last part here, you're going to need the animation panel as well as object states. You should already have object states open, but if you need animation, window, interactive, animation. Just group them together and that's fine. I'm gonna pull this window a little bit closer and we're gonna focus on the text frames with the stats, the provincial stats. So I'm gonna click on object states, and again, that's gonna bring up the state, each state, and I wanna add animation to each text frame. Now, if I go ahead and add animation just by clicking on the state, it's not gonna take. So I wanna add the animation to each text frame and not as the group. So I'm gonna go back to animation, or actually, sorry, click on object states with state 1 selected. Go ahead and double click on British Columbia. That's the first one. Go to animation, and we want in the preset, zoom in 2D. And you can see the event will happen on state load. So when you click on British Columbia, this will appear. Now I want it to play at 0.5 seconds, okay? And we only want it to play once. Perfect. Go back to Object States, click on State 2, double click on Alberta text frame to drive into that specific text frame. Choose the preset of Zoom in 2D with a duration of 0.5 seconds. And you don't have to worry about the event because we've already set up the button structure, so it's automatically going to set up at state load. If by chance it has any of these others, which it shouldn't, just make sure it's on state load. Go back to Object States, click on State 3. I'm going to double click on Saskatchewan to drive into it. The preset is Zoom in 2D. The duration is 0.5 seconds. Okay, and basically I'm just hitting return or tab key. Go to Object States. This is why having Object States and animation in the same panel here makes it a lot easier as you're setting up the interactivity. I'm on State 4 now. I'm going to double click on Manitoba. Go to Animation. I'm going to choose the preset of 2D and play at 0.5 seconds. I'm just going to finish out the rest. And then what I'll do is I'll publish this as an EPub, and I'll show you how it looks in an e-reader. Okay, great. I've set up all the animation. Let's take a look at how it appears before we publish this or export it as an EPub fixed layout. So you can see, I'm just going to click on each one, and they will appear. You can see it comes in better than if you don't put the animation in, but of course that's up to you. I do like the 2D animation coming in. It just adds a little bit more interactivity, and the animation makes it just look that much better. So let's go ahead now and export it as an EPub fixed layout. All right, so we're going to export this as an EPub fixed layout and open it in an e-reader such as Apple Books or Adobe Digital Editions or the e-reader of your choice. I should note that this will not work for interactive PDF, so do not even attempt to open it in Acrobat because Object States animation will not work. You can publish this online, take the embed code and paste it onto a blog post or content management system of your choice, okay? So what I'm gonna do is go up to File, Export, and you want to export this as an EPub fixed layout. You see here, it'll most likely default as an Adobe PDF print. So just click on the format type, and we want fixed layout because that will keep everything intact. So fixed layout and hit save. That'll save to where you want it. Just open it up. I already have one open here, and I'm gonna go to View, enter full screen, and let's have a look here. So I'm gonna hover over them. You can see that the rollover works fine. Okay, let's click on BC. Yeah, that works. Alberta. So oftentimes you might, if you go too fast, you'll run into a situation where it kind of gets confused. So you just have to kind of take your time and hover over it, give it a sec, and then click on it, okay? And they'll all work. Now this down here, because it gets a little bit smaller, you want to click on the, just click on the name and not the province, okay? But you can see that interactivity works, the animation works, and it's a great way of adding an interaction and an interactive element to your design layouts in Adobe InDesign.
So that's how you create an interactive infographic map in Adobe InDesign. If you enjoyed this tutorial, if you found it helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to get notified when new videos have been posted. If you'd like to learn more about interactive design, go ahead and click the playlist above.